Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shirtless Plantain Show. If you guys have followed us for the last 4 years, you kind of know like what we're about. We love football, but we also love taking things as unserious as we are, because that's just who we are. Like, you're not going to get anything else besides us with unseriousness. But we want to start up a new kind of series that we're doing. And our first guest, we don't need to introduce him, but he needs a lot of introduction, because I feel some of you might have forgot the greatness this man was on the football pitch. With us, we have Nigel Reo-Coker. To me, one of the best midfielders of his generation, part of two legendary Premier League sides, the West Ham team that survived and the Aston Villa team. You know, when you say the streets don't forget, yeah, you do not forget the Aston Villa team. You know exactly what I'm talking about, the Aston Villa team. And he knows, he's smiling because he knows exactly what team that is. Ladies and gentlemen, without further talking, it's Nigel Reo-Coker. Thank you so much, Nigel, for making time with us today.
Nigel, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm very easygoing like yourselves. I think you got to get that balance right in life. And I think for me, when I played football, it was just a dream, but then I never looked at myself as the footballer or that stereotypical thing. I've always still just Nigel. You know, I've simple life approach, treat people like how you like to be treated.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things about, and I hate to sound like an old man, like, oh, this generation, but I feel like the previous generation of footballers had a lot of personality, and I feel it's kind of changing a bit, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But we want to kind of start with your career. We know you started off at Wimbledon. Let's talk, kind of talk to us about how your career started and all of that.
I mean, Wimbledon for me is, how would I put it in perspective over here? So some people might not know. It's a club that's all about the people. It was the people's club. Didn't matter where you were from. They were probably one of the first few clubs in England to really embrace the ethnic minority, in the sense of producing a lot of young black players were coming through different ethnicities. They were scouting from all over the place. And we were kind of seen as the kids off the wrong side of the track. So there was always fun when we used to play against Arsenal. We used to call Arsenal like the private school boys, and we used to play Tottenham and everything. We used to make fun of them, but we were the rough kids. We were like the diamonds in the rough. And then Wimbledon was the place where we got polished. And it's for me, it's one of those scenarios when you look back, you're just grateful that you came through that, because that club was the foundation of what made me the man I became and the footballer I became. Because when you go through that club, you'd understand it. And it's a real brotherhood, really and truly. It's kind of like a bit of a Navy SEALs kind of vibe, because we all still keep in contact with each other, the ones that played, the ones that didn't. There's a still solid foundation behind that club, compared to if you came through Man United or Arsenal, or one of those kind of we'll call them the posh uppity clubs, like that shirt that your mate's got on right now.
I think one of the things is, like, people don't know, Wimbledon doesn't even, exist, but it doesn't exist in the state it used to exist. It's now MK Dons, but people don't realize that, like, Wimbledon was a actual solid club growing up, and then just finances happen, and so Wimbledon doesn't exist anymore, but it doesn't in MK Dons. One of the things that people don't know is that you almost signed for Portsmouth in 2003. Talk to us about that.
Trust me, I'll tell you, there's not enough time when you talk about my career and stuff and what happened. But I signed for Portsmouth for Harry Redknapp when he was Portsmouth manager. And at the time, Wimbledon was in administration. The administrator who came in was a businessman, didn't know nothing about football, was a numbers guy. So he agreed to sell me. And I think someone else within the club said, no, he's young, you can't sell him. He's going to be worth a lot more money to us later on down the line. Don't sell him. And then the administrator pulled the plug on the deal, and Portsmouth wanted to take legal action, but there wasn't much that they could do at the time, I think. So that did happen. I did meet Harry, signed, excited, think I'm going to get my Premier League dream come true, but it didn't happen, and it didn't happen that way. And then again, it's in hindsight in life, when you look back at how eventually I made it to the Premier League, it meant more to me that way than being signed by a Premier League team as a young kid coming from the Champions League, because it's a greater journey, great experience that I took with me for the rest of my career and other things that I went through.
Then, question quickly: did he have a Range Rover back then when you met him?
Pardon?
Did Harry have a Range Rover back then when you met him?
I don't know what Harry was driving there, but Harry was like a legend back in the day.
Yeah.
He was like an East London legend. Like when you watch some of them gangster films of the East London,
exactly.
Some men you just say his name. Harry was one of them, Harry Redknapp.
Listen, Harry Redknapp is a legend. He deserves his flowers every single day. I know some people that watching this might not know who Harry Redknapp is, but if you don't know, please, like, go on YouTube, go on Google. You need to know Harry Redknapp is an English football legend. That's all I have to say about that. So then you moved to West Ham afterwards, and that West Ham team was, you guys played against Liverpool in the FA Cup final, but that West Ham team had some characters on that team, man. Teddy Sheringham was on there. Marlon Harewood, like, had some...
Dean Ashton.
Oh, my God. I'm trying to think about all the players that was on there.
Nah, there was too many. There was too many. I think like West Ham for me was probably again another one of the great foundations. It's like you've come from Wimbledon, from young lads wanting to make it. Then you get to West Ham, obviously a recognized bigger club at the time. But don't be fooled. Like Wimbledon is one of those small boxes that come against the giant, but they have a big heart. That's the way to describe Wimbledon.
Yep.
And West Ham was a giant of a club. And it was unique. The great thing I like about all the clubs I was at, they all had that family environment, that family uniqueness of everyone speaking to everyone, everyone knowing everyone, from the kit people to the people at the ground and everything. So West Ham was just amazing because the dressing room, I think, is what carried West Ham to where we went. I think Alan Pardew was a great coach. So all the other coaches that we had there in that kind of regime. But the characters, like we used to fight amongst ourselves in the training, and we used to fight amongst ourselves in the pitch, and we used to have such great connections. Like if one of my good friends I still talk to this day was Hayden Mullins.
Oh, Hayden.
If someone would say rattle him, if someone tackled him and he didn't kind of like it, we'd make jokes like, "Don't worry, mate, I'm going to get him for you after the next one." And we actually would go after players like that. We had that kind of camaraderie of if we got upset, we'll target certain people, make sure we got each other's backs. But we used to fight in the training ground and we used to fight in the pitch. And that's what made us such a unique team. And it's because you have big personalities.
Yeah.
And when you've got big personalities like that, in the game of football, managers know it as well. There'll be times when if things ain't going right, if you've got the right kind of big personalities in your dressing room, they'll take over. But like the names that you said, you had Anton Ferdinand, Marlon Harewood, Bobby Zamora, myself, Danny Gabidon, James, Jimmy Walker, the goalkeeper, Roy Carroll, Teddy Sheringham, Yossi Benayoun, Sean Newton. Everyone in there was a big personality.
You forgot Mascherano and Tevez as well.
Mascherano and Tevez came in and I was their captain.
Yeah, it was.
Their first three most important words in England. Shit, fuck, cunt. Pardon my language. You're going to have to bleep them all out, but yeah.
Nah, don't worry. This is completely unserious. You can say whatever you want on here.
And that's also the perfect segue to our next question. That relegation season, the relegation battle. Talk to us about that, because you guys ripped off, I think, like 4 or 5 wins in the final 5 weeks to just skin by.
The funny thing is with that, right? It was just such a horrible season. Like if you start from finish, I didn't get to have a preseason. That was the season when I was in I was in the pre-World Cup squad.
Yeah, yep. 06, yep.
Yeah, just before the World Cup. Before the World Cup, I had to pull out because of a back injury. I didn't get a preseason. Being young and naive, I thought I could get away without playing a preseason. It doesn't work like that. You need a preseason in football. It's so important to have a preseason. Anyway, caught up to me. Results weren't going well. Then other stories came out with links when I was linked to Manchester United and Arsenal. And promises were said and weren't kept. And then it gets out at West Ham because, like I said, everyone knows everyone at West Ham. Then all of a sudden, results ain't going well. And then who do you have to blame? The captain. You know, one of the youngest captains of the club at the time. It was all my fault. So I was getting abused left, right, and center. And it's not in this generation where people have to understand. This generation, you can defend yourself on Twitter or on Instagram. You have your own account. You say it. That's it. Back in those generations, newspapers could write whatever they want about you. And it's in the press. That's it. Like to go and defend yourself, it's a long way to go. So most players never really did, unless after a certain while. So you had to eat a lot of shit, so to speak.
Yeah.
Halfway through the season, we're still not winning. People blaming me. And I'm sitting there as a young, I think, 21 or 22-year-old. And I'm looking at some of these guys in the dressing room. You're talking about the likes of Teddy Sheringham and all them lot in the dressing room, 39, 38. And they're saying, I'm the catalyst of the dressing room. The 21-year-old from South London is the one that's making all these guys follow me and listen to me. And that's why the whole season's going wrong. Halfway through the season, I remember, I'll never forget one game we played against Wigan. And the West Ham fans were singing Break His Leg, talking about me, the captain, because things weren't going that right at all. Yeah, that's how deep it got. I'm telling you, it was bad compared to how you hear some of these players complaining. Yeah. So my own fans were singing Break His Leg. And then, obviously, we changed managers. Alan Pardew left. Alan Kirbishley came in.
Kirbishley is a legend.
Yeah, but things weren't going right still. Mm-hmm. So it got to the point where it was the make or break point. I think it was like last 14 games or 13 games. We had to really put a serious run together. Some senior players went and saw Kirbishley and said, listen, when we were at our best, the most successful, this is what we did. And he just said, all right, fine. That's what we're going to do. And we did it. And then the characters took over. You know, we got back to fighting each other in training at times and being really aggressive, played the way we train, and we got the results. We got the run of results. I know everyone always talks about Carlos Tevez, who was a great player as well, but people forget, listen, a lot of work was done by Bobby Zamora up front, and he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Bobby Zamora really did a lot of work. And, you know, obviously Tevez got the glory of scoring the goals, but Bobby Zamora was a big, important part to us staying up along with everyone else. But he was a big player as well. So he went on a crazy run.
I have 2 questions about that season. One, talk about the United goal that happened. Because I remember, as a United fan, we remember that. We cannot forget when you scored against United. I was happy for you personally, but me as a United fan, I'm like, come on, man, why are you scoring against us? That's nonsense. But talk about that goal. And then the second question, I know you probably don't remember this, but I have another question for you.
Go on.
No, after United question.
No, the first United one was, for me, it was obviously playing Man United. You know, when you're a kid and coming up from South London, you dream about these games and stuff like that. So you play against Man United, you play against Liverpool. At that time, if I'm honest, mentally, I was a wreck. Because remember, like 21 years old, I don't really have tremendous amount of support in the sense. I'm playing for West Ham, one of the biggest clubs in London, and fans are singing "Break His Leg." Fans are basically blaming me for the whole club being upside down. And there wasn't really many people coming out there to defend me.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just playing the game. I had to have tunnel vision and tough skin. You know what it's like when you come from South London. You kind of have to man up very quickly. Yeah. So I scored that goal, just kept on playing, got the goal, and then obviously all the fans were cheering. But that's the first time I think the first time they beat Man United in the league for God knows how many years. And I still think it's the last time they beat Man United in the league since then. So you can still see the goal on YouTube. You can see in my face, I wasn't celebrating. It wasn't pally because I'm the same guy you're singing "Break His Leg," and then we score against Man United and you're cheering. And then we won the game. And I think that was one of the first real catalysts. And for me, it still doesn't even feel like a moment that I really savored. I know it's there and stuff and goals, but I was just so angry inside with everything that was going on at the club at the moment. I never savored it. But the reaction was, yeah, all right, you're going to cheer for me now, but 2 games ago, you were saying "break his leg" and all types of obscenities against me. Yeah. But it's just showing how tough you have to be to come through certain things in football, because there's a lot of stories that players don't really say 100%. Of what they go through and what they have to go through, especially back in those days. Because it wasn't as it is now. People weren't as understanding as it is now. It really was a bully boy tactic and you had to be mentally strong. But for me, it was great to savor that.
It's also funny you mentioned the media, because like the media now is terrible. We know that. But back then, the English tabloids would murder you guys.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People don't realize. And that's what, and we talked about it a little bit off stage. You know, you talk about what Ronaldo was saying, and I'm just like, bro, you've got your own avenue to say what you want to say. If the media are writing stories about you, you go on your Instagram and say, this is why I wasn't there, family issues, respect my privacy. No one can say anything or make anything up. You're saying it off your own words. The fans will believe you. But then in our days, like I said, they'll write in the papers. And a lot of the people who used to write for the papers back in those days had ulterior motives, and it was personal with them. If they didn't like you, it was their opinion, their paper. That's the only thing people can read. So you had no way to defend yourself. And there's a lot that I had to go for. I remember, like, just a quick story. There was one thing that happened as well one time when playing a game, I got substituted off. Then in the papers, they wrote that I threw the armband down. I disrespected West Ham and threw the armband down in the papers. People were reading it and believing it. And I had a friend of mine at the time who worked at Sky Sports, and that's when Sky Sports News became quite well known and stuff like that. And I said, listen, they said I threw the armband down, and then my friend had to do a piece for me on Sky Sports News to show I handed the armband to Hayden Mullins, but people read it in the paper already and believed it. And the reality of it is, like I said, there's a lot that you can compare to this generation, to the old generation. Like what Sterling said to really bring a bit of a change in football for people's mindset, that was already going on from way back then. Like it hasn't really changed that much.
Yeah. We're going to make it a little bit lighter because there's a goal I need to talk to you about that you probably might remember. It's against Arsenal, and you did that dance. I remember that dance. We're going to pull it up here, but
Laffy Taffy, mate. The Laffy Taffy.
Talk to us about that dance, because I don't know what you were doing, but it was
right, it was a Laffy Taffy. It was a Laffy Taffy. I just couldn't drop it. I was tired, man. I couldn't drop it properly, but it was a Laffy Taffy.
Yeah. There's another dance you did with your teammate Anton Ferdinand, which most people do not remember. you did the crank that with Anton. I remember that. Talk to us about that.
Do you know what? It's crazy though, because at the time, we were the like big boom generation of young footballers coming through at that time.
Yeah.
And what we did was, the thing that we did different was, we didn't go to Spain or Portugal or Greece like a lot of the older generation players went on holidays.
Like Kieran Dyer and all those guys. like Kieran Dyer and Rio and all those guys.
Jermaine.
Yeah, they're all going to Spain and Portugal and all that. But we were the young generation. It was like, all right, we're going to America. So we were the first ones to start coming to America, going to Miami and stuff like that. So obviously we got influenced a lot by American culture and different things. So we knew about Laffy Taffy, you know, all the 50 Cent, So Seductive and all that type of stuff. So we knew all those dances, and we were doing it then because a lot of English players or footballers in general weren't going to America as much back then.
Yep. Oh man, the 06, 07, 08, that generation, man. Jesus, that's a time ago. That was like high school, right?
That was high school starting college for me.
Yeah, high school starting college for us.
That was a whole moment. I'll say that much.
It was.
That was a movement. There was a lot. Remember, there was a lot of players that came through all different clubs.
Needham Manua, all those guys. Micah Richards. Like I was even saying it to because you know obviously we technically co-was with Micah. One thing I was saying is like they didn't know Micah was in the T2 video. Like there's people that don't know that Micah was in the Range Rover in the video, and I was just like, yeah, Micah.
That was Micah.
Yeah, Micah was a big boy back then. He wasn't some little boy. Like Micah's a big boy. So
I know, but do you know what it is? It's because in our generation we had camera phones, but we didn't have Instagram and all that. There wasn't that much great interaction with footballers unless you really loved the sport and watched it. But now it's easy to get access and to see footballers and know who they are with so much social media, everything on YouTube, everything all over the place. But in our generation, there really wasn't.
I couldn't imagine having like Instagram and Twitter right now the way it is in like 07, 08. Like those.
Nah, not the stuff that we did. Not the stuff that we did that we got away with and the type of craziness we did.
It'd be a wrap for that England team in 06 with that.
Oh my God.
Oh, right, there's too much.
Yeah. Let's switch to Aston Villa. That's a team that like, when I say the streets don't forget, like you had John Carew, you had Ashley Young. Oh my God.
Gabby
Agbonlahor. Brad Frieda was there. Whole bunch of like talented players there. Talk to us about Aston Villa. How was that experience?
I'll be honest with you. I think for me with Aston Villa, Martin O'Neill knew how to build a team.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. He knew how to put a team together. And when he did it, it's very similar to West Ham, which is what I said. It's all people. It's full of characters. That's what it is. It's full of characters. And I think for me, the difference with me was from young, like I said, I was captain in Wimbledon from the age of 15. I think I was one of the youngest captains still to this day, maybe in the championship. When Wimbledon were playing, I was captain at 18 or 19. So I've always been a captain from a young age. So when you're that position, you have to be mentally different and you have to be a bit more tougher. So some people, it might not have washed down well with them, especially, let's be real, young black kid from South London captaining like championship and Premier League clubs and like clubs like West Ham and captain Aston Villa for a bit. It doesn't go down well with some people because they're not used to it. They're not used to seeing that. And especially when you're vocal and confident, they're like, oh, they think you're arrogant when it's not the case.
Yeah.
So when you go in that dressing room, I probably was a certain way where a lot of people weren't used to that. But I saw the change in some people, like Gabby Agbonlahor. He wasn't that loud as he is now as when he first was in the dressing room at Aston Villa, but he got given some wings. Now Gabby's a top guy though, but he got given some wings. But it was just real unbelievable characters in there, man. And you talk about those characters, you talk about Emil Heskey. I mean, Zach Knight was part of it as well.
One thing quickly, I say Emil Heskey is one of the most underrated footballers ever. I think a lot of people, like, when they see Emil Heskey, like, obviously he's stereotyped as a donkey, but Emil is so underrated. And I'm saying this as a United fan. Obviously played for Liverpool, and that guy's a very underrated striker. Do you agree with that?
I agree, because he got caught in that weird window where it was between Rooney, Owen was still around, and he just I don't want to say he got put in the back burner. He just constantly overlooked, but he was a solid striker all those years.
Yeah.
It was the negativity of the British press. I think the perception of Emil, without realizing to his value, was all done through the British press and how they were with him. You know, and reality of it is, Michael Owen, if Emil Heskey wasn't playing, Michael Owen wouldn't have scored as many goals as he did, because that was the way and the style of football back in those days. You need a target man, and Emil was more than just a target man. Great feet and can do it, but you have to play a certain role when it comes down to managers. But as a human being, He's one of the nicest footballers you'd ever come across. Like I still speak to him every other day. He's like a brother to me.
Yeah.
Like I speak to him all the time. And I always say to him, you don't realize how much a legend you are. But what happens with that as well is it's like how the press kind of writes about you. And then you got to think back in England, all the top writers of football writers were all white. They don't have no black friends. They don't have interactions with black players. And if you're not a certain way to appease their palate, they're not going to be exactly very pleasant to you. But again, like I say to you guys, it was a team built on personality and characters. And again, that was a team that just understood very quickly, you either win or you draw. You don't want to lose games there. Because when you lose games there, the training ground for the week is one of the worst places to be. It literally was being like being in hell when you lose a game. And that mentality kind of caught on quick at Aston Villa. And that's what really brought us our success. All the personalities and characters that we had. And we just understand how to get that kind of winning mentality.
Let's go over to, you moved over to Bolton for a little bit with Owen Coyle. I remember Owen Coyle, man, that guy would wear a long sleeve shirt, baggy shorts, and then I was like, what's this guy doing? But how was that Bolton experience?
It was good, man. It was good. Like the thing with Owen Coyle is for me, he's the nicest manager I've ever come across.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him on a personal level and he told me his reasons why he was that way. And I really liked him. Like I can't say anything negative about him. I just felt sorry for him because I think if he had the right people playing for him, because the Bolton thing was so difficult for him. At the time, there was like 11 players coming out of contract. And I think there was financial issues there. As a manager like that, with how nice he was, it's hard to be able to motivate these players when a bit of selfishness comes in football, when everyone's worried for themselves with contract coming out. If Bolton stays up, it's not going to affect them whether they're going to get a new deal or not. So he was in a difficult position, but as a manager, he was fun. He used to join in training and used to play striker and used to put the ball in the top bin and used to make fun of players in training that couldn't do it and everything like that. But he was, I'm telling you, he was a unique manager.
Yeah. And then after Bolton, kind of talk us through your career, like the latest stage of your career, because we know you came to America and all
did
of
a little tour of the MLS.
Yeah.
I toured the MLS, yeah. Learning experience. Listen, my approach in life is just simple, regardless of what happened to me. It's all a learning experience. You know, everything that I've been through and everything was just for me to learn and learn. Came to America, played in the MLS, learned, see how the dynamic of the game works here and how people kind of really vision football and their beliefs and their principles. Don't have to agree with it, but you're going to learn still to understand when you come across people from that nation again or whatever it is. So played at Vancouver Whitecaps, left there, went to Montreal Impact, played with Didier Drogba at the Impact. We got to the CONCACAF final, lost to Club America in Mexico. And obviously I think since LA Galaxy won it, who's just won it recently? It was
I think it was Seattle. Yeah, I think it's Seattle.
Seattle won it, so they're going to go to the World Club Championships. But and then again towards the end, I wanted to continue to play because I know I could physically do it, but opportunities didn't come. And then the problem you face as well sometimes is even when you go to lower league clubs, it's not so much the financial package that's the problem. It's like what you want to do longevity wise. And then sometimes you meet some of these coaches and managers, and you could see already because of my reputation and my name, obviously playing in the Premier League, captaining clubs for so long, and every club I played for, I captain. You get the insecurities of managers and coaches feeling that, if anything happens to me, then he might get a job or anything like that. So they'll do everything they can to stifle you not to get an opportunity at clubs. So eventually I just kind of just left it, put it in the back burner, but learned a lot, you know, met a lot of different people. And then you just understand more about the game and the vision of it from different people from different countries.
One thing about the MLS quickly before we, because we can talk about the World Cup a little bit, but I think the MLS is a weirdly underrated league. I think that you can probably attest to that too. Like a lot of people don't understand. It's difficult to play in the MLS. Like the traveling you guys do is tough.
It's difficult to play in the MLS for sure. I think for me, there's still room for improvement in MLS. The potential is there, but there's definitely room for improvement. I mean, the biggest thing you have is the product. And you have to improve the product. And I think with that, obviously, you have to kind of be more open to coaching and different coaches. Like just saying that I've done some coaching badges in the US. And when I was speaking to one of the instructors of the coaching badges, I was like, why for my opinion, I felt that why they so rigid. It's like everything the book says, you have to follow it by the book. And I'm like, football's not work like that. Like, as long as someone is talking sense and understands his style and principles of the game, you should give them the freedom to express themselves in that. But they're making coaches follow it by the book. And it was funny, after I did the coaching badge, I still was playing for another year or two. One of the managers I played for literally was doing everything out of the book. And I'm just like, this is why like some coaches here struggle, because you just got no identity, literally just copying everything in the book. And I'm just like, it was funny because, quick story. So he did the team on a sheet like you do.
Yeah.
And every player in the position, he done like 5 or 6 arrows of where they're supposed to run. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this. I'm like, fuck me. If these guys don't know where to run and they're professional football players, they're in the wrong industry. At this age now, if you don't know where to run, the manager's doing 6 arrows on every name where they're supposed to run and be. You're in the wrong league now. But it's everything that they saw in the coaching manual that they just came and regurgitated. And it was just like, oh, potential's there. But I just think they have to be more open-minded and concentrate more on the football aspect of it.
I want to ask you, what do you think about the playoff structure that they have in the US here with the MLS versus, relegation and promotion that we have in Europe?
I don't agree to it. I think it's going to be hard. The only reason why I don't agree to it is because I think it's hard to breed winners. And I'm only speaking from my experience. One club I was at, we lost the game, players just, it's okay, we get them next week. And next week we lose again. It's okay, we'll win the next one next week. Players were comfortable. You can look around. And then I think after the 4th game, they said it again. I'm like, no, it's not effing okay. Like, you got to start winning games. Like, it's not about next week. But you could see there was no desire for these players to play or anything.
There's no
they're
urgency.
comfortable. There's no urgency. They're comfortable. But in Europe, your wages go down. Fans don't come as much. There's a lot more at stake. You're no longer at the top of the tree. So I think that's what creates the more competitive edge and the more desire in players. And that you'll see it when you watch the World Cup.
You'll see, and I think you're noticing the change in the U.S., and I think this is a good segue to talk about the World Cup. You've seen in the players the U.S. have now, the ones that are actually playing in Europe versus the one that's over here. And there's no slight to MLS. Like, I don't slight any MLS players at all, because being a professional football is hard. My younger brother went pro. My cousin played in MLS, so it's hard. I know that much. But you see in the mentality of the guys, right? Like, when Yunus Musa plays, it's a lot different than somebody else. Like, Yunus Musa plays, or Tyler Adams now plays, or Weston. Like, Weston can even tell you, like, him being at Juventus, I'm sure he's a different player than when he was when he was first started versus anything else. And, even Christian is seeing it. He's not playing weekly. Like, Christian is like going from, playing weekly. He's seeing it now. Is a different game now. So these American players are going to start learning, like, quickly and soon, like, this is a different world. I mean, Brendan Aronson's younger brothers now in the Bundesliga, so they're all learning. But it's a good way to talk about the World Cup. We obviously know, political-wise, listen, we said this backstage before we started, that the World Cup, I mean, like, I understand, like, boycotting Qatar and all of that. It's we all understand that. But this isn't the first time, like, we've had a World Cup in a contentious place, right? We've said this, like, the 78 World Cup, I think it was in Argentina, and we all know that. So, for me, obviously we know the politics, but, like, let's just talk about, like, the actual games itself. Like, you have, like, a clear winner. Like, who do you think is going to win the World Cup?
Do you know what? It's hard to say, because people can have their views and opinions, but no one knows. It's the first time we're having a World Cup halfway through the season. I think if you're looking at it realistically from a sensible point, I've never seen a more talented Brazil squad than this Brazil squad ever. Like, when we used to watch football, you used to say Brazil, you'd say Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, then Denilson will pop out. There'll always be 1 or 2 attacking stars. And then the other players are good, but you won't really mention them. But when you look at now the modern game, the Brazil squad could probably field 3 teams, different teams that could compete and get at least minimum to the quarterfinals.
I was just literally saying this before I left on, like, because someone's like, I'm not sure their mentality. I'm like, bro, listen, Anthony's probably not going to start. Fred might not start. Like, Paqueta might not start. Like, this is a big boy team. Fabinho is definitely not going to start because Casemiro plays his role. And so you have players now on this team where, like, I'm looking at the Brazil team, like, mate, this is like, you're leaving Firmino at home.
It's squad. And I think as well is, when you look at the modern game as well, like, managers now who you'd say are progressive, the reality of it is changed. Like, you can start your team. You can read the game in the first 10, 15 minutes. You might have to make changes earlier.
Yep.
And with Brazil and the players they've got the ability to make tactical changes when they need to, if the game isn't going the way that they want to. And they've got such a rich riches of talent there. That's the difference. And I think that they are the best squad I've seen in Brazil for a long time. And I think Argentina are good. Lionel Scaloni was my old teammate at West Ham. Played in the FA Cup final with him. And what he's done at Argentina is remarkable as well. He deserves a lot of credit. Finally, you've got a manager now that's got Messi working within a team dynamic. It's not now just let's put all the burden on Messi. Messi now is working in a team dynamic, and Argentina have a good team and a good structure. So they're another dark horse. The French are the French. It's only if the French implode, if something happens with some kind of comment or controversy in the dressing room. But talent-wise, you can never deny the French. They're frightening. I'd say the other ones as well to watch are Uruguay. Uruguay is a fantastic nation in producing top players.
Bentancur.
I feel Valverde is one of the best midfielders in world football right now.
Literally was going to say Bentancur and Valverde is a stupid pivot. Like, that is a very, very stupid pivot.
Valverde is phenomenal. I'm telling you.
You could take midfielder out of there. He's probably a top 5 player in the world right now.
I think so. I think he's probably the best midfielder in the world right now. By what he's doing at Real Madrid and current form, it's hard to argue against. But Uruguay, extremely dark horse. Yeah. The Germans are being the Germans, very smart and sensible. Got a great mix of experience and youth. Yep. They're taking some great young talent there. And Cuckoo's, I reckon, is going to be the breakout star. You got Musiala at Bayern Munich, who's not really, can't call him a breakout star because he's just doing phenomenal things at Bayern Munich. But they've got a good young core coming through of fearless young players. And I think they, again, depending on application side of things, I think their biggest problem really is a clinical goal scorer. Yeah. You know, who's going to play that up front number 9 role. Havertz really isn't a number 9. But this young kid, Cuckoo, Borussia Dortmund, I think your club, Man United's after him as well. He could be a breakout star.
That kid is strong. What do you think about England? I know you know, obviously you grew up in England, U21, all that. So,
I mean, for me, England, the thing of England is there's so much controversy in the squad that he picked, and again, you know, the striking element. Harry Kane is obviously the main talisman, but for me, he looks tired. He's been absolutely ran ragged at Tottenham. And he looks tired. And I said to people before a few times, when I look at this World Cup, this is a World Cup you need to pick players on form. They don't get the end of season rest and 2-3 weeks to get fit and 1 or 2 friendlies to pick it up. They've just stopped playing last week and now they're going straight into a World Cup. That's the difference with this World Cup. So it's literally just like maybe having a week and a half or a week off your domestic season and you're going into it. So I feel you need to pick players on form, and he looks tired right now. So the striking situation is a bit of a problem. And then defensively, Kyle Walker hasn't played in the Premier League and he's just gone into it. Eric Dyer hasn't been getting regular games at Man United. So you do feel the further deep they go in the tournament, the more that could get exposed by other teams and other players.
Yeah. This actually leads into my next question. If you were the England manager, who are you lining up in your 11?
You didn't tell me that, man. That's a question I've got to sit there and think. It's a tough one.
We got some time to think.
Yeah, that's what we told you. We're going to throw some haymakers at you.
It's a difficult. I mean, you probably have to go with Pinkford. If you only the current players available now, or the ones that's
you can even list some snubs that they didn't take.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Reece James for me is probably the best one that's out. Like he's massively influential. Reece James. I would have probably taken a risk on Tomori.
I like it.
I like that choice a lot.
Milan. I would have taken a risk on him. I'll probably put Eric Dyer. John Stones actually. John Stones, Tomori. Jesus Christ.
Left back now.
Or you can go 5 back. You can keep it the way Southgate does with that 5 back.
Luke Shaw.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll just go simple forward to Luke Shaw. I'll go Jude Bellingham and Declan Rice in the middle.
Okay.
I'll put Raheem Sterling on the right.
Okay.
Saka on the right. Sterling on the left.
Okay.
And then I'll go with Kane and I'll go with Kane and Rashford. Just Rashford dropping off a bit.
So 4-4-2.
Traditional
4-4-2.
Yeah,
old school, mate. No need to reinvent the wheel. Explosive 4-4-2, expansive, fullbacks overlapping.
We know exactly what generation of football you came from.
Yeah, mate. Old school.
Yeah. We have a couple questions outside of the World Cup that we want to ask before we get into rapid fire. If you were playing the football today, because obviously modern football's changed, what role would you say you would play today in modern football?
If I was playing today, I'll probably still stick to the box-to-box role.
Okay.
I like being involved in everything, and I think when we were coming through, Makelele was a big influence to most clubs because of what he did at Real Madrid and came to Chelsea. Then all of a sudden now you had to be specifically a defensive midfielder. But we grew up in that generation where you had to be able to do everything. So I would still stick to that box-to-box role. So, well, you kind of look at what Valverde's doing right now, saying similar thing really. He's playing box-to-box.
So another question we have, we look at the Premier League now, obviously the Premier League's changed. What do you think is I guess in a sense, what would kind of be the difference with Premier League when you play versus Premier League now?
More personality. There isn't players out there with a lot of personality.
Yeah.
Everyone's robotic.
We were saying this.
Robotic. That's exactly what I was going to say next. It's a bit too robotic now. It's a bit too, this is how the manager wants you to play. You got to make, there's not enough real individuality. And I think you probably like this as well. Like when I like that kid, Garnacho at United.
Yeah.
He was on the touchline. He gets the ball. He's going to run straight at that fullback and beat him and take him on. That's the generation we came from. And that's something that's a bit different that would scare teams and players.
We're saying this. I remember it was the 06 Premier League or 07. I forgot what month it was. It was nothing but bangers. Remember when Skull had that?
Scans Peterson was on the mixtape every other week.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
I do not. Whenever Peterson played against United, I was like, nah, we lost this game. I'm good. Played against Blackburn away. I was like, nah, I'm already good in that.
He scored 6 goals a year, and they'd all be worldies.
Yeah.
It's all individuality. I think there was more freedom for players to be the personalities that they are and be individual. Now it's just a bit too robotic.
You guys had that with Ben Ayoun at West Ham.
Yossi was the same.
He was a perfect example of that.
Yossi was silly. You know what I'm saying? That Yossi was silly, man. Some of the stuff he was doing was just...
Yeah, he was the we called him the key because he used to unlock them doors for us. You get Yossi the ball in the final third, just unpredictable, technically so gifted, and he could make that pass in the right moment. Great player.
So we're talking the scheduling now because obviously, we had Premier League a week and a half ago. Now we got World Cup. So scheduling wise, what do you think of the scheduling wise? And what would you kind of advocate for the players for their recovery?
It's difficult to say because nowadays, obviously, they're trying to improve the rule for 5 substitutions. Okay. These clubs are very wealthy and they've got very big squads. So you can argue if managers want to rotate their team, they have the ability to, and they've got enough strength in depth to be able to do it. So compared to when we were playing, squads were nowhere near as big as this. And we still had to play a lot of games. And I'll probably say the game was a lot more physical and meaner in our generation compared to this generation now. If you stay down, you stay down for a reason in our generation.
You had some nasty center mids. You had some nasty center backs back in the day.
Center back, center mid, the tackles you go in. If you're going for a tackle in our generation, you're going in.
Saul, Rio, they'd let you know they're there.
Not even Saul and Rio, forget that. Imagine going to a 50-50 with Titus Bramble. I'm good, man.
Bramble, you're forgetting the wrong one, mate. Martin Keown and Tony Adams.
Donkey.
Gary Pallister, all of them type of guys. They're the real old school beasts. You don't want to mess with them guys.
Pallister as well. Gary Pallister. Oh my God. Nah, I'm good. Let's get into some rapid fire questions. Just quick thinking, just throw it off. What was your favorite Premier League ground?
Anfield.
Okay. Well, who was your hardest center midfielder opponent that you played against?
Yaya Toure.
Makes sense. Who's the best player you've ever played against, just in general, just the best player?
Sen Toure.
Who is your favorite coach?
Gerard Houllier.
Legend.
Nice.
What was your personal best season? What year?
Probably say first year in the Premier League with West Ham.
Cool. What is the greatest moment of your career?
Greatest what?
Moment of your career.
First Premier League goal against Blackburn Rovers.
Cool. Who's your favorite teammate?
I've got a few, man. I've got a brotherhood. Can't pick one. Got a brotherhood. Too many.
Fair enough. Upton Park or London Stadium?
Upton Park.
That's good. That has to be Upton Park. That's real old school. What's the most difficult away ground that you've been to?
What's it called? The Britannia Stadium.
Stoke.
Wet rainy day on Stoke.
On a Tuesday. What's the best goal you've ever scored?
I'll have to say my first Premier League goal still.
Cool. This is a question for me because I'm a nerd and I know I know you wore the total 90s, the old ones. Do you know the ones with the in the middle, like the white? You know the ones in like 2003, like those are the 2002 World Cup total 90s. They remember those ones, the like white and black in the middle. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Total 92s.
The Adidas, right?
No. You wore Adidas most of your career, but like when you're at Wimbledon, you wore Nike boots. You wore total 90s.
Yes. I know you're talking about.
You see,
Exactly.
I'm a nerd. I know.
The guy who took me to Nike left Nike, went to Adidas, and I went with him.
Yeah. So what's your favorite boots that you've worn?
Do you know, honestly, I was a bit of a Predator freak, man. I love the Predators. Once I got into the Predators, I love the Predators. All the different Predators.
I have a pair of Red Manias at home. So,
oh wow,
yeah, the red 2002 Manias. I have them somewhere in my crib. So, love those Manias.
The original Predators. Could you imagine wearing the original Predators now with those bumps on it in the modern day football that is now?
You're gonna probably smash a goal from 50 yards out.
Oh yeah, because those bumps will really affect the modern day football as well. That's the crazy thing.
Those are real leather too, not like fake leather. That's actually like real leather as well.
Not the boots that it cost $5 to make and they sell it for $250. Yeah, not those ones.
Yeah. Just want to do some rapid fire for England players. Rio or Terry?
Rio.
Great answer. Lampard, Gerrard, or Scholes?
Scholes.
Great, even better answer. Gary Neville or Trent?
Trent.
Okay, calm. Rooney versus Kane. Rooney or Kane?
Rooney.
Okay. I think that's
those are the ones.
Those are the ones. Okay. Who's the greatest football player of all time in your opinion?
This is a conversation that people always have, and I disagree with it. I think you have to respect every player in the different generations. But for me, there was two that stood out for me. Like obviously, without disrespecting the greats of Pele, Maradona, and obviously Eusebio and all that, I look at Ronaldinho and Ronaldo. And I think the reason why I say the original Ronaldo.
Yeah, trust me. We know.
That's the only Ronaldo.
That's the only Ronaldo.
When we talk about Ronaldinho and Ronaldo, the reason why I say this is this. When people watch these videos, go on YouTube, the type of skills and tricks that they did, you can't be taught that by a coach. You can't be taught that in an academy. That's natural ability. And to this day, Ronaldinho is still the only player to play in one of the world's biggest games for Barcelona versus Real Madrid to be subbed off and stand up to get to standing ovation by Real Madrid fans while playing for Barcelona. No other players ever had that, to my knowledge. But they're the type of players that get you on the edge of their seat every time they get the ball. And it's just natural ability.
I was going to say that because I remember 98 World Cup. That's like the first World Cup I fully remember was 98. I remember before the final, that video that came off like Thuram. It wasn't 2 years. Dassayi and Thuram. They're talking about Ronaldo. Like they're like, don't ever let him do his step overs. Once he does his step overs, you're finished. Like he's just gone by you.
He's gone. He's got the space. He's out of there.
So what's your favorite movie of all time?
Do you know, it's one of the favorite movies is Crash. Crash with T.I. and Ludacris in it. Not the old Crash. I think it's the I Think It Crash.
Okay.
And the reason why I like that movie is it reflects real life and society, because what you say to someone you might know or interact with that person on a day that you don't know how it can affect them for the rest of their day or their life. So the interaction that we have with one another has such a bigger magnitude than you can realize.
Yeah. We've known you lived in many cities. What's your favorite city ever that you've lived in?
The most beautiful city I've lived in is Vancouver. Vancouver is absolutely beautiful, man. Like there's no other city like Vancouver. But for me, I'm a city boy, but I like to live just in the outskirts. So I'd have to say, like, I lived in New York for a bit, and I like New York, and obviously living in London as well.
Okay. What's the one accomplishment that you're most proud of?
The one accomplishment?
Yeah.
My career.
Great career.
Yeah.
Amazing
just
career.
Having my career. It's a dream. People, and the reason why I say that is people have to understand, for every one person that makes it like me, there's thousands of kids who don't make it. And even if it's not even just the making part, but to stay there at that high level for a good couple of years still is another achievement in the old. I think people don't realize how hard it is to make it as a professional football player. For every one player that you see, thousands of kids in that generation or that age group never made it.
Yeah. I mean, that was that generation of English players, U21s, where like I thought we were gonna be so like special, and it shows you how hard football is. Like you came up with Anton Ferdinand and Nida Madou and all those guys, and it's just like, man, that was for me growing up.
That was.
Yeah.
Do you know what people don't realize? You see that generation there? That's the first big boom generation of ethnic minority kids making it as professionals. That was the real big generation. When you look at it numbers wise, that's the first real explosion of like loads of young black players and stuff making it as professionals.
I was gonna say like that for me, because I'm a bit younger than you, like, you know, a couple years in, like, you know, so for me, growing up as someone who tried to play professional football was like, I looked at that generation like, I see people like me finally who looks like me. And it's even like in the media now with football media, it's like you're now starting to see more and more black people on TV. So like when I see Mike on TV, it makes me so happy because it's like we're finally starting to see people who look like us who are on TV. So it makes sense. Like when I look at generation, I'm like, I wish you guys kind of like all play for the England national team, but we all know there's a lot of politics that happen with that. We didn't get into England U21. I didn't want to get into that on purpose, but you know, that's a story for another day for sure.
That's a story for another day. We could talk about that and reflect on a lot of different things. But no, yeah, you're right. I think even with me, when we were growing up, the only one footballer that was out there was Ian Wright. Ian Wright was an Arsenal legend. He was doing the TV commercials. He was on TV. So he was the guy that we looked up to, like, we want to be like him. You know, we want to be like Ian Wright. We want to be that one to really break through. There was other black players where you don't want to disrespect them for their careers and stuff like that. Yeah. But Ian Wright was the first one we can say really went mainstream kind of thing 100%. And really blew up to be accepted, because before him, it was probably John Barnes, you'd say. Yep. John Barnes and Ian Wright. So they were the only two that we had. So when we were coming through, it was probably another gateway for these young kids to see that. And especially like with me being a captain as well, young and black and stuff, that influenced a lot of other young black players of, you know, what they could achieve as well and do.
People never realized that about Ian, younger people rather, because Ian really opened the door for the next generation of kids.
He did.
I say this all the time. You ask an Arsenal fan who was their, like, I guess, gateway drug and become an Arsenal fan. It's like 3 players, like at least like with our generation. It's either Kanu, Ian Wright, or Henry. And if you're a bit of a psychopath like myself, Anelka. But like that, like very few people are gonna say Anelka because like I love the Anelka run. But like what made me a United fan is the same thing we're saying is Andy Cole joined 95. I saw a black guy look like me.
Andy Cole. Yeah, forget about Andy Cole and Dwight York as well.
So Andy Cole's the reason I became a United fan. So it's very cool to see like you have players of your generation who influence like a generation of players, because now you see the England national team is a lot of black players starting, man. Like you got Saka's there, Sterling's there, Rashford's there. I mean, it's amazing to see like how we've changed so much as a society. So it's cool, and it's still a long way to go, but you know we're seeing progress every day.
Yeah.
So, last question we have for you, and this is the way we're gonna end this new series. 90th minute, you scored a winner, and you reveal your shirt. Like, what would kind of be your statement on your shirt?
What's the message on the shirt?
Yeah.
Blessed.
Love it.
Blessed, grateful, blessed. That's what I've got to say. Blessed and grateful. Every day is a blessing, and to be a professional footballer was a great blessing, and I enjoyed it. And you know, the higher power helped me make it. And I'm going to give you guys a shout out. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. I had a great time. And also, I've got to remember, I've just seen a legend behind you in that shirt. That's another guy that people need to YouTube and look. The legend in JJ Okocha.
Oh, man, listen.
Before you watch Ronaldinho videos, watch JJ Okocha videos. Watch what he used to do for football at a young age.
I have some JJ Okocha stories we'll share later, but I love JJ, man. I love JJ. There's a reason I have that jersey. I have 2 JJ Okocha kits, actually, but yeah, you're right. JJ is that guy.
He doesn't get talked about a lot in the world of football, but when you talk about ability from those older generations, JJ Okocha was a bad boy, just like George Weah as well was a bad boy.
He falls into that the streets will never forget category for us.
Yeah. Legend.
Yeah. I mean, last thing before we go, JJ got Roy Keane pissed. Even when he did the rainbow over he got Roy Keane and Beck's pissed. I remember there was a way at Bolton at Reebok Stadium. Like he did some flick, and Keane was swinging, and he was vexed. You can see Keane's face. He was just
trying to hurt him. Yeah.
And he couldn't touch him. So
he couldn't touch it. That's what I said. But that's just, you can't mess with that ability. And he flicked it over Ray Parler's head. Flicked it over someone else's head.
Yeah. He made Oliver Kahn sit down a couple of times. Yeah. So Jay's a legend. Nigel, thank you so much for making time with us, man. Really appreciate you.
Man. Good meeting with you.
Anytime, man. Thank you for having me. Let me know again. Maybe we could do this another time on some other topics if you want.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nigel Reo-Coker, the legend. He'll definitely come on again for sure. Appreciate you so much, Nigel, once again. Take care.
Thanks, man.